This is the Vermont State House, a third version of the same structure. When the second State House burned in 1857, the fire took almost everything, but it couldn't destroy the massive granite columns. The Vermonters who rebuilt the State House wanted it to be indestructible, capable of withstanding not only fire, but forces greater than fire, argument, and open conflict. Hello, I'm Sam Lloyd, and I had the honor of serving in this building for many years. For the next few minutes, I'll take you through highlights of 3 historic controversies that put these granite walls to the ultimate test.
Oh, you say slavery is immoral and pray that God will free the slave, but not right away. I beg your pardon.
The basic point is that all citizens must have the right to vote. Are not women citizens, sir?
Democracy cannot mean giving the majority a right to mistreat a minority.
Passing this act would go against everything America is built on.
This is the place where Vermonters contain the heat of passion and debate and use it to forge agreement and compromise. Everywhere in this House of the People, lawmakers see the state motto, adopted in 1778, freedom and unity. Vermont's founders believed that government should allow the most freedom for the individual, even as it guarantees the unity, safety, and the shared values of the community. Freedom and unity. Worthy goal. So, in 1777, the framers of Vermont's Constitution declared, all men are born equally free and independent. And by all men, the signers truly meant all men. So in the very first paragraph, they had done what the new U.S. government had failed to do, outlaw slavery altogether. Vermonters took this principle with them when they joined the Union in 1791. But they made a silent compromise with the federal government, let Vermont continue to outlaw slavery, and slave-holding states can do as they like. Not everyone could live with this compromise. By the 1820s, a number of radical societies for the abolition of slavery had sprung up in the state's tiny hill towns. What made a radical abolitionist radical was the desire to free all slaves immediately without conditions. Most Vermonters were still uncomfortable with complete abolition in the 1830s and 40s. In fact, the man elected governor in 1852, Erastus Fairbanks of St. Johnsbury, supported gradual freedom of American slaves.
A moment, Governor. I'm very concerned about your views on slavery.
My views are the views of any sane man. I'm proud that it is illegal and considered immoral in this state. Sunday mornings, I include in my prayers the wish that he will let the captive go free.
But not right away.
I beg your pardon.
Oh, you say slavery is immoral and pray that God will free the slave, yet the Vermont Colonization Society, of which you are a member,
And a proud member.
supports only gradual freedom and then resettlement in Africa. How can a man support a gradual rise to morality?
You are one of these radical abolitionists, are you not, Senator?
I am. As a Baptist, I can be nothing else.
And because you can be nothing else, I thank the Lord you are not governor. Your views, sir, lead down the path to a war that would rip this country in two. Moderation, my radical friend. Moderation and patience.
But the unsteady compromise over slavery was upset again and again, each time a new slave state proposed to join the Union. By the time Lincoln was elected president, tensions had reached a climax. On April 12, 1861, Confederate forces attacked Fort Sumter in South Carolina. 8 days later, Governor Erastus Fairbanks of St. Johnsbury ceased to be a moderate on the question of slavery. He addressed a special 4-day session of the Vermont legislature, which authorized him to raise and arm 6 regiments of soldiers.
Gentlemen, all my life, I have been proud of our state's commitment to the freedom of the slave. I have also been proud of my own moderation on the question of slavery. You all remember the Dred Scott decision and the Fugitive Slave Act, clever attempts to reimpose slavery within our borders. I have fought these manipulations of the law, but have never seen the need to take that fight to the southern states. Well, the time for moderation has passed. Our choice is no choice. War to save the Union, or cowardice, and seeing the United States split into 2 countries, one free and one enslaved. We must fight, and we must fight for freedom and for unity both. Gentlemen, I have received a telegraph from Washington from President Lincoln himself. It reads, "Washington is in grave danger. What may we expect of Vermont?" Our answer will be brief. Just 6 words. Vermont will do its full duty.
So began the Civil War, which would finally do for America what Vermont had done with its Constitution almost a century before: free all men within its borders. After unbelievable bloodshed, the states were eventually unified under the principles that all men could be citizens, all men could vote. They were unified by something else: the understanding that only men could vote. It's ironic that many of the most effective abolitionists were highly educated white women, women who could not vote themselves or own or inherit property. Abolition overshadowed the issue of women's rights for a long while, but not entirely. Vermont produced its own homegrown suffragettes, women like Clarina Howard Nichols. Nichols was a writer and a newspaper woman, but it wasn't until she began to give public lectures that Nichols found the perfect format to match her calling.
I would like to close with these thoughts. Women have won the right to inherit and own property in Vermont. These are basic rights. I would like to conclude with my thanks to the governor and...
Madam, since you have stolen a place in the State House, I'm sure you won't mind if I do the same thing to answer your remarks.
By all means, sir, you are officially the first person ever to heckle a woman in the Vermont State House.
Madam, you support amending our Constitution to give women the vote. But what gives our constitutions their permanence is the fact that we don't amend them every time one group feels the need.
The basic point is that all citizens must have the right to vote. Are not women citizens, sir? And if you give women this basic right by a simple law, then you can take it away again the next afternoon. Only a right written into the Constitution will endure.
Mrs. Nichols, Eve was not the last woman to be led astray. You will have a world where only the handsome will win elections.
Then you'll have little to fear of finding yourself pressed into office, sir.
This whole charade boils down to nothing more than barbarism and puffed-up pride and free love.
Then you'll have even less to fear, sir. Friends, I ask only that we acknowledge that women are fully one half of the people.
It is because of this that we must answer the shouts.
Finally, in 1870, a statewide constitutional convention was called to consider amending the Vermont Constitution to give women the vote. But in the end, the vote went 231 to 1 against women's suffrage, a crushing disappointment. 50 years of small, difficult victories followed. In 1907, Vermont became the first state in New England to give women the right to vote in local elections. But in 1920, when Vermont finally had a chance to ratify the 19th Amendment, the governor kept the issue from coming to a vote. The amendment passed without Vermont's help on August 6, 1920. It's tempting and easy to look back on the abolition and women's suffrage issues as crystal clear, as if those who supported them were all visionaries, and those who opposed them all evil. But the truth is that social change is a difficult and a muddy process. It's only the passage of time that eventually makes things seem clear. Here in Vermont, we need look no further than the debate over civil unions to see just how muddy the waters of civil rights can get. In late 1999, the Vermont Supreme Court rendered a verdict in Baker versus the state of Vermont. The plaintiffs were 3 same-sex couples who had lived together for periods up to 25 years. The justices, citing the same clause Vermont used to outlaw slavery, ruled that same-sex couples had a right to benefits equal to every man and woman joined in marriage. Whether the legislature allowed same-sex couples to marry or to enter a civil union, it could no longer deny them a legal partnership. Harsh, even cruel editorials and signs appeared around the state. But in no forum would the conflict over the decision be more wrenching, more divided, and yet more civil than in an extraordinary 2 days of public hearings held in Montpelier. And over 1,500 people fought their way to the State House. A capacity crowd of 500 made it into the House chamber.
My suggestion to you as a committee is to listen to the vast majority of Vermonters. These people define marriage as the union between one man and one woman.
Democracy cannot mean giving the majority a right to mistreat a minority or to deny a minority of citizens equal status.
There is a higher law that guides us, and that law was not handed down from Montpelier, but from Mount Sinai. And that law has directed people of faith not just for the past 6 weeks, but for millennia.
Vermonters have nothing to fear from same-sex marriage. Please don't be tempted into doing only what you think is popular. Do what you think is just and right.
I'm asking you to uphold traditional marriage to ensure a society safe from the effects of homosexual chaos.
So I ask you, members of the legislature, to uphold the rights of the minority, no matter how uncomfortable it may make the majority. Civil rights are not a matter of comfort, they're a matter of doing what is right.
Ask yourself, please, how is this going to benefit the society at large?
If they could get married, we could be a real family. Not like we aren't, but it would make me feel like I have a special, new kind of family. It would make me feel special and good if my moms could get married.
Laws for the encouragement of virtue and prevention of vice and immorality ought to be constantly kept in force and duly executed. It has been suggested that we should leave our faith at the door as we enter the State House. The writers of our Constitution did not do so.
I want a marriage license for a very simple, unsentimental reason. Because I think it will best protect my family in case something bad happens to one of us.
I believe that same-sex marriage is unconstitutional and unbiblical. Our forefathers built this land on biblical grounds. Passing this act would go against everything America is built on.
Vermont was the first state to abolish slavery. Vermont was the first state to graduate an African American from one of its colleges. Vermont will continue this tradition of courage and do the right thing.
This is the United States of America. The state of Vermont needs to follow our other 49 brother and sister states and keep united and not allow homosexual marriage and partnership. To do otherwise will simply destabilize society and tear up this wonderful state of ours. Thank you very much.
And in that long debate, the state reached back to the best of its civic tradition. The public debates that marked the abolition and suffrage movements. Forums where speakers like Clarita Howard Nichols found a way to change hearts and minds. The legislature passed the Civil Unions Bill, and Governor Howard Dean signed it into law. But the state was still not of one mind. More than a few lawmakers were voted out of their seats over the issue. No one knows what the consensus of Vermonters will be over time, but we do know where the conflict over the issue belongs, here, in this house of granite. It's worth remembering that in the Vermont motto, freedom and unity, the word freedom comes first. Sometimes unity takes a while longer.